India-China border conflict. Shaped foreign policy to a great extent. Indians have very strong conviction about what happened to them. India sees this conflict as something like this. This is India, and China came and took this. Okay. And also claiming somewhere here in the east. So Indians have the notion that it is their country, like this, represented by this, and their land occupied by China. Okay. But what is normally missed is that this border conflict is a construct. Okay. India is like this is a construct. Border like this is a construct. So India came to this position through series of constructs which can call a story. And China came to this position through its own series of constructs, through its own story. But people forget how these stories have been built. These stories are taken as representations of real. Reality they think is read as what the story says. Okay. So what China did offends Indians so much. Okay. But let us see through what kind of steps this particular narrative came about. Okay. What steps are involved in this? Okay. I would say the three important steps from India side, say India story, is that number one, British India is ours. Okay. Whatever the British occupied is the territory of independent India. So the assumption is that British India is ours. I would say this is a very serious assumption. Because what is British India depended on the British power, colonialism, imperialism, all kinds of wars, treaties. Okay. And the Britain at that time was the most powerful. So it occupied many places, it signed treaties. For example, Northeast India. How did certain states of Northeast become part of India? Because the British ruled. So it is not because any Indian ruler ruled them, or cultural similarity, something like Nagaland, no cultural similarity. So British territory is claimed as India's territory. These claims are serious, especially when there are people who may not be want to be a part of India, when they don't agree with being a part. So that is one. And second thing is that even British territories' borders are decided like that for certain military purpose, and borders keep changing. Okay, and there are different accounts of borders. What is the right and wrong? And why borders keep changing is that sometimes the military strategies keep changing. As military strategies keep changing, the claimed borders keep changing, also change. Okay. So, and then in the case of this particular India-China conflict, that because it is this territory that is involved, India thinks it is Chinese occupied, or India claim it is Chinese occupied. Another part of the construct is that this Jammu and Kashmir is, as we discussed, integral part of India. Okay. So India's story includes, I would say this is the first one, and I would say maybe this is the second one, and borders is the third one. Okay. So through these constructs, India came to this position. Okay. How about Chinese story? Chinese story also is also through a series of certain constructs. For example, Chinese conflict with India came through China taking over Tibet. In fact, if Tibet is not taken over by China, there is no border conflict between India and China. So, from Chinese side, one construct is that Tibet is ours. And how Tibet is ours? It is something like this. In the case of China, certain things need to be understood. That is, China is not colonized by any one country. China doesn't have an equivalent of the British Empire. Its territory is controlled or partly controlled by different powers. So during the British rule, India was under a strong rule, British rule, whereas China is not so. China is weak. Okay. So the implication of this is that because the Britishers were ruling India, they could give or they could take more territory, more. Whereas China felt because it was weak during those days, it did not get what it was due to it. So there is an unevenness between British India under British colony and China, which is not under any powerful empire. So China felt that whatever the border conflict it had with others, China with others, because China was weak, these conflicts were not to the advantages of China, and then any treaties were not advantage to the China. So in fact, later China said that all unfair treaties should be abrogated. So one reason why China has so many conflicts with many other countries is that it feels that when it was weak, many took over. Okay. But now coming to claim over Tibet, it is something like this. Take for example in India, if the Delhi ruler is strong, then his rule will be extended to large territories. If Delhi rule is weak, then it will be confined to only small area. So it means during the statehood, states' borders keep changing. If you have a strong rule, more territory, and if you have a weak rule, less territory. So, in the case of China, when there is a strong rule, then so much, and Tibet will be covered. But when the rule is weak, Tibet will not be covered. So sometimes China is big, sometimes China is weak, small. So it means Tibet will be covered for some time, not covered. This is the historical context. So China claimed that the Tibet was ours because for certain time and for these many years it was under it. But again, one can question if it was so, if it was under control long ago, how can China claim now? And how about people's will here? Okay, so we can say that it is through series of constructs this conflict took place. Okay, and now come to more specifics. Okay, coming to more specifics, this particular conflict, this is between Jammu and Kashmir ruler and Tibet here over the border. Okay, border was, the border as a line is a recent development. At many places, borders would be huge areas, many times unoccupied. These are the places unoccupied. And it is here, there were many border lines proposed. Many lines are proposed. These lines are proposed based on military strategy. Okay, there is a mountain range of Karakoram mountain range, and sometimes it was felt that the border should be claimed much far away and sometimes closer. So there are conflicts. Okay. So China claimed one line and India claimed another line. India's claim was what was called Johnson Line, and China made a claim on another. Okay. So this was how it came about. And in India's case of Johnson's line, it seems Johnson was an explorer who gave a lot of territory to Jammu and Kashmir ruler to impress him. It didn't really affect others because it was there only on the map. In fact, map itself came much later. I mean, the line in map came later. So these were the issues. Okay. So it is through these things we got, and we need to look at this. Now let us go to the specifics. This is the range. This is the most important mountains, and defense thinking was around whether you should be close to range or not. And this is India claim line. Okay, this area illegally occupied by China, according to India's accounts. So the lines here is that one, there was Johnson Line in 1868. Johnson was an explorer, and then McCarthy-MacDonald Line, 1899. This is another line proposed by the British government. India's claim is based on Johnson Line. India's claim is based on Johnson Line, and China was making a claim based on this. And in fact, there are other lines also. So this is India's claim line based on Johnson Line of 1865. And this line 1899 accepted by China until 1959. So this was 1899 line. This is Johnson Line. Okay. So these are like this. There is conflict about the eastern side. This was based on Mcmahon Line. Mcmahon Line was going at the crests of the hills. Okay. So China made a claim on the basis of not this line that was going under crest, but going across foothills. So crests versus foothills. Okay. India claims Mcmahon Line, crests, so a lot of territory to India, and China claims this. Okay, this also is because of Tibet border, but otherwise China doesn't have any border issue at all. Okay, now coming to the main point, that either any of these lines, 1899 line or the Mcmahon Line, these are not, even during the colonial times, not agreed upon lines by China. not agreed upon lines by China. So they have been contested all along. They have been contested all along. So, which means give and take would be the right approach. Okay. In fact, China proposed give and take. This is another thing that Indians think that India was following Panchsheel, following peace, and China was the aggressor. But neutral accounts say that this can be seriously contested because China was proposing East-West swap. China was proposing East-West swap. That is, on the eastern side, you take your claim. On the western side, let India take eastern side, and western side, China. Okay. But India was refusing. And then war took place. And China, being militarily more powerful, China took what it wanted. But even then, China said that we'll go for you accept this. But India did not. The idea of East-West swap, that is, whatever occupied, whatever be the result of 1962 war, China said that let us accept that as the border. That is, China was asking, let de facto be de jure. Okay. So something like it was like this was proposed during Nehru time, and then much later this de facto as de jure proposal was there, it is said, even up to Deng's time. Which means de facto as a de jure means that whatever China is occupying will be recognized legally as China's, and whatever India is having will be recognized as India's. Means it is a peace proposal. But it was India that rejected during Nehru's time and then much later, and that proposal was there till Deng's time. But would China be interested in a thing like that now? We don't know. So we don't know whether East-West swap or East-West agreement will, or de jure is as de facto, will China agree to it or not now? We don't know as of now. Maybe China wants more than what it has at present. We don't know. But all along, China was saying that let de facto be de jure and then forget the conflict and let us be friends. Okay. So though China was militarily successful, it did not take what all it occupied and then said this is ours. It took in a way what it wanted to take as a part of political negotiation. So what it was proposing only it took. So from China's side, it was playing a fair game, given its story that it has control over Tibet. It has the right to Tibet's territory. So this is the story, which means that there is a lot of contestation and dispute, and it is just not like that there is clear Indian territory is invaded by China and occupied. Okay, it is not like that. In fact, even in the case of Mcmahon Line, see this. The Survey of India took Mcmahon Line as a border only in 1937. And 1946 edition of Nehru's Discovery of India did not go by this line. And that was only line. Actual administration on the ground changed only by 1947. So at least India should accept that there is a dispute and it is contested, and through give and take approach it should be resolved, rather than thinking that this is ours and then they took. Not like this. Okay, now come to how did others look at India-China conflict? Arnold Toynbee, a world historian, makes these observations extremely insightful. It is clear that lines drawn by British officials should have been consecrated as precious national assets of the British Indian Empire's non-British successor states. So the lines drawn should be seen as national assets. Okay. So why should those lines be seen as like that? And he says the present consecration of these British made lines, the present consecration of these British made lines as heirlooms of the successor states and national heritages is an unexpected and unfortunate turn of history's wheel. That how can these states claim, and he says this is an unfortunate turn of history's wheel. And then this is what he says about these borders. If any of them paid attention to what Durand or Mcmahon were doing, they will have written it off as just another move in immoral game of power politics that British imperialists were playing at the Indian taxpayers' expense. So these lines are as a result of power politics and all kinds of things. And how can these lines be consecrated like that? Okay. So this is what a person, the world historian is saying. Okay. It's very insightful observations. And then look at one person who covered war at that time, Maxwell. He was Times correspondent during the 1962 war. And he felt it was India's China war. In fact, India was making it. And in his book, India's China War, which was based on India's internal review, Henderson-Brooks Bhagat report. So this report was confidential. Only Maxwell had access, and he used that information to write this book. And it was highly critical of India. It says India's China war. Okay. But then this book is based on India's internal resources, but he didn't have access to Chinese resources. Okay. And then this is what he has to say on India's claims. Indians have convinced themselves that if they declare a tract of territory Indian, it becomes Indian, which is nonsense. The ownership of territory can only be decided by diplomatic discussions between two parties concerned. So Johnson Line, Mcmahon Line, these are not approved by China, not approved by, not a result of an agreement. Okay. So Johnson Line was just drawn by one person, never agreed, and Mcmahon Line was proposed in 1914, and China did not agree. Tibet agreed, thinking that the British would help in giving them more autonomy, but British did not deliver their side. So essentially, these are one-sided lines, and negotiation is needed. That is what Maxwell is saying. So these people are looking it not in an India-centric way, but in a global context of what is right and wrong. But look at how Indians thought. How Indians thought was shaped by, I think, Nehru's thinking. So look at what he said. Now it is a question of fact whether this village or that village or this little strip of territory is on their side or on our side. But normally, whenever there are relatively petty disputes, well, it doesn't seem rather absurd for two great countries immediately. Sorry, it does seem rather absurd for two great countries immediately to rush at each other's throats to decide whether 2 miles of territory are on this side or on that side. And especially 2 miles where nobody lives. But where national prestige and dignity is involved, it is not 2 miles of territory. It is the nation's dignity and self-respect that becomes involved, and therefore this happens. So to what extent this kind of thinking is right? So equating 2 miles of territory as dignity and self-respect, where there is a case of dispute and it needs to be peacefully resolved, and that was what China was proposing. So this particular narrative that this is a matter of our national dignity and China took it was passed on through history books to generations of our students. Okay. So this shouldn't have happened. So what we are doing is how we got into a situation like this, and how the story has to be changed so that we become intelligent and capable of solving the disputes. So my conclusion is that we have created a story and we think this story is real, and this thing is equated with national honor and dignity, and then we are tied to our own stories, and because of which we are not able to resolve the disputes. So all this should be done, and that is a way to go forward. Okay, thank you.